and attended infantry OSET and airborne school at Fort Benning, Georgia. He was assigned to the 3rd Brigade, 101st Airborne Division for 10 years, where he completed 4 combat tours. He was then assigned as a drill sergeant at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri for the remainder of his 13 years on active duty. Sergeant Major Strasbaugh transitioned to the Army National Guard in 2016 and has since served with the 1st of the 148 as a reconnaissance platoon sergeant, Bravo Company 1st Sergeant, Headquarters and Headquarters Company 1st Sergeant, Operations Sergeant Major, and in his current position as a Battalion Command Sergeant Major. In 2017, Command Sergeant Major Strasbaugh completed a security tour in Jordan in support of Operation Inherent Resolve and has experience in rifle, anti-armor, and reconnaissance infantry units, serving in every position of an infantry platoon, from rifleman to platoon leader, even serving as the equivalent of a company commander for 12 hours during combat operations in Afghanistan. His awards include the Combat Infantryman Badge, the Pathfinder Badge, the Parachutist Badge, the Air Assault Badge, the Drill Sergeant Badge, the Order of St. Maurice Centurion, the Bronze Star, the Meritorious Service Medal with 1 Oak-Leaf Cluster, and the Army Commendation Medal for Valor. Ladies and gentlemen, Command Sergeant Major Matthew Strasbaugh.
To the everlasting glory of the infantry shines the name of Roger Young. General Woodruff, General Johnson, General Manus, Sergeant Major Workley, distinguished guests, friends and family of the greatest fighting force that the world's ever seen. Today we come together to celebrate tomorrow as the 250th birthday of the United States Army. 250 years of service and sacrifice from Lexington to Afghanistan. For 2.5 centuries, young men and women have displayed the intestinal fortitude required to raise their right hand, put on a uniform, and go to the places that most people don't want to go to and do the things that most people don't want to have to do. We've carried the weight for 250 years. We are a unique organization in the fact that, as was alluded to earlier, we swear an oath not to a person, not to a king, not to a queen, not to an emperor. We swear an oath to a document and an idea. An idea that man can self-govern, that the typical average everyday American man and woman can decide for themselves how best to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. It's very unique. It's a radical idea. So for 250 years, we've sworn that oath and we've carried the weight. We froze in Valley Forge. We fought like hell in the wilderness. We lived in squalor in the trenches. We stormed beaches. We took islands. We sweat in the jungles. We beat the heat in the desert. The American soldier has faced foreign oppression, secession, tyranny, fascism, communism, and terrorism, and all while living up to the warrior ethos. The American people have put a sacred trust in each and every one of us, and we've never failed it. The American fighting spirit has never failed that sacred trust. As I researched to organize my remarks for today's ceremony, it's a very humbling experience when you think about the organization that I've been in for over 2 decades. So the Army has produced presidents, members of Congress, statesmen, authors, astronauts, the United States Air Force, you're welcome. Movie directors, actors, scholars, doctors, professors. Some of the biggest names in our country's lore have passed through the ranks of the United States Army. Alexander Hamilton, William Tecumseh Sherman, F. Scott Fitzgerald, Louis L'Amour, Joe Louis, Mel Brooks, Elvis Presley, Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix actually has more jumps than I do. Oliver Stone, and Jason Eversman, if you're not tracking, he was in Nirvana and Soundgarden before he decided to just be a Green Beret. So the organization has produced epic moments and amazing one-liners. So after the first day of the Battle of Shiloh, when the Union Army was caught completely off guard and by surprise, took kind of a whipping that day. Sherman found Grant puffing a cigar under a tree, and he said to him, "Well, Grant, they gave us the devil today." And Grant just kind of shrugged and said, "Yeah, we'll lick them tomorrow." William Harvey Carney, if that's a name you're not familiar with, it's a name you should be. First African-American Medal of Honor recipient. Received the Medal of Honor for actions at the Battle of Fort Wagner during the Civil War, which was immortalized in the movie Pride. He received the Medal of Honor for retrieving the colors of the United States of America under fire and crawling with them back to friendly lines. When he got back to friendly lines, he simply said, "Boys, I only did my duty. The old flag never touched the ground," and then he collapsed. Alvin York, when he received the Medal of Honor, he was summoned to report to a general that jokingly said, "I heard that you captured the entire German army by yourself." And he simply said, "No, sir, it was only 132. Teddy Roosevelt Jr., the only general and the oldest soldier to land in the initial waves on Omaha Beach, when he assessed the situation and realized that everyone was kind of scattered to the four winds and nobody had landed where they were supposed to, looked at some of his junior leaders and said, "Well, we'll start the war from right here." At the Battle of the Bulge, and it pains me to give a shout out to the 82nd Airborne, a young private first class digging a fighting position saw an American tank destroyer in full retreat. He stopped it, said, "Hey, if you're looking for a safe spot, just pull your vehicle in behind me, because I'm the 82nd Airborne, and this is as far as the bastards are coming." During Operation Eagle Claw, the failed Iranian hostage rescue attempt, elements of the Army's Special Missions Unit were awaiting the next phase of the operation on a C-130 when it was impacted by a helicopter. Spews burning jet fuel everywhere. One of the operators, Frank McAllister, awakes on that C-130 to the front half of the airplane on fire. He runs to the exit, jumps, achieves a good halo body position, and then impacts the ground about 2 feet later. Afterwards, one of his leaders asked him, "Frank, you didn't have a parachute, what were you going to do?" And he simply said, "Sir, the plane was on fire. One problem at a time." One problem at a time. These are the kinds of moments that the United States Army has produced. Men and women who can operate under pressure, that will rise to the challenge. We've accomplished amazing feats. This surprise attack on Trenton, the largest amphibious assault in history, elements of the 101st going to the south and making sure that African American kids can go to school. We waged an entire secret war with complete deniability in Cambodia and Laos. It's crazy. We also have our dark times. We have times that we don't like to talk about, times that we don't like to think about, but we must face them. It's very important that we learn the lessons so that we don't repeat things like Wounded Knee, My Lai, and Abu Ghraib. We learn those lessons and we carry them into the future so that we don't let them happen again. 250 years, the Army has produced shining examples of what it means to be an American soldier. We know the names, we know the deeds, we know the places, and rightfully so. We know about Francis Marion in the swamps. We know about Ulysses Grant at Monterey. We know about Chamberlain at Little Round Top. We know about Teddy and the boys on San Juan Hill. We know about Charles Whittlesey, lost and shelled in the Argonne. We know about Roger Young and his sacrifice in the Solomon Islands. We know about the epitome of the Army Ranger, Ralph Puckett, in Korea. We know about Paul Bucha, a rock song, not a big deal. Paul Bucha in a strip of jungle in Vietnam that didn't even have a name. We know about Gary Gordon and Randy Shugart at Crash Site 2 in Mogadishu. When I think back over the 250 years of service and sacrifice, though, I like to think about the unnamed sacrifices, the hundreds of thousands of young men and women that carried the weight. I think about a farm kid with a musket that went and fought for independence. I think about the staunch abolitionist that left his tailor shop in Boston to go fight for someone else's freedom in the South. I think about the poor kid from Harlem who went to France and earned the title Hellfighter. I think about the teacher that left the school books, joined something called the Airborne, jumped into France, and led paratroopers across the ETO. I think about a recent high school grad who had a higher sense of service, and so she joined the Army, became a nurse, went to a place called Vietnam, and took care of boys on their worst days. I think about the 0.45% of the American population that just got done fighting this nation's longest running war. 0.45%, less than 0.5%. It's crazy. All of you, just by coming here to work, do something to support the American warfighter. And that's something that you should remember. It doesn't matter what you do here. It doesn't matter if you're authorizing someone's travel. It doesn't matter if you're managing land and ammo. It doesn't matter if you're managing logistics. What you do here supports the American warfighter. And that's something that's very special. You're surrounded by heroes every day and you don't even know it. So let's run an experiment real quick. If I were to tell you that on a joint patrol in Afghanistan in 2010 that came under enemy fire, under a hail of bullets, and through a couple explosions, one member of said patrol moved to the front to render life-saving aid to a battle buddy under fire, how many of you, by a show of hands, would say that's heroic? Okay. There's a command sergeant major with his picture in the hallway from the 112th Medical that has a V on his Bronze Star ribbon for what I just described. You're surrounded by heroes, you don't even know it. And that's something to appreciate. Appreciate them, appreciate yourselves, appreciate what you do for carrying the weight. We're at a unique point in time. I think it's fair to say that the United States has lost a sense of service and sacrifice across the board. I just got done telling you that 0.45% of the population served in the longest running war in our nation's history. When I think about that, and I think about where we're going in the future in the United States Army, the possibility of large-scale combat operations, Xi Jinping telling the People's Liberation Army to be ready to take back Taiwan by 2027, it's a daunting task. We have dark days ahead. But I take comfort in a speech that Ronald Reagan gave in 1964. Now, at the time, the future president was talking about the Cold War, and he was talking about how Americans were just tired of it, and they didn't want to continue the struggle. And I think it's very relative to where we are right now. When we think about the daunting task of large-scale combat operations, when we think about high casualty rates, when we think about reverse triage, when we think about drone swarms, when we think about all these things, it's a scary thought. But Ronald Reagan said, you and I believe. Let me back up. He said, you and I know it, and don't believe that life is so dear and peace so sweet, so as we purchase at the price of change and slavery. If nothing in life is worth dying for, when did this begin? Just in the face of this enemy? Or should Moses have told the children of Israel to live in slavery under the Pharaohs? Should Christ have refused the cross? Should the patriots at Concord Bridge have thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard around the world? The martyrs of history were not fools. And our honored dead, who gave their lives to stop the advance of the Nazis, did not die in vain. So where then is the road to peace? It's a simple answer after all. You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay, there is a point beyond which they must not advance. Winston Churchill said, the destiny of man is not measured by material computations. When great forces are on the move in the world, we learn we're spirits, not animals. He said there's something going on in time and space and beyond time and space, that whether we like it or not, it spells duty. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We will preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we will sentence them to take the last steps into 1,000 years of darkness. Ronald Reagan said that in 1964, and when I think of everything the United States Army has done since that speech, carrying the weight, facing tyranny, facing communism, facing terrorism, it makes me hopeful for the future. I hope that you share that hope as well. So, thank you for being here today. It's an honor to speak on 2.5 centuries of service and sacrifice. Roger Young, let valor not fail. This will defend. Thank you.